Greetings. Welcome back to Hellhound's Late Night Spook Show here on the Horror Metal channel. I'm Hellhound, and we're going to do yet another re-review today, continuing my streak. So, yesterday I redid my review of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and today we're going to look at the sequel. That's right, this is going to be my review of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 from 1986, directed by Tobe Hooper. I own quite a few copies of this movie. It's my original VHS from back in the day. I love that classic Breakfast Club parody cover. I've got the poster over there. And then the, what I'm pretty sure is the first official DVD release, which is pretty bare bones. Doesn't have, it's got the trailer, which is the only special feature, and then cover is boring. Just Dennis Hopper just standing there. Just a picture of Dennis Hopper. Boring. And then they came out with this one, which originally had this awful, ugly cover art, which is even worse than this one. That looks like just some typical modern day horror movie, maybe like a Saw sequel or something. I freaking hate that cover. It sucks. So luckily they put this this slip cover or whatever it's called over top of it in most newer releases of this version. So yeah, just cover up that eyesore. And the only reason I bought this version because it actually does have a lot of special features. It's got deleted scenes, which I wanted them to put on a DVD release for years, and they finally did. Commentaries, featurettes, still galleries, lots more bonus content than this release, of course, even though it does have the ugly cover, but this is a pretty cool replacement. And then, of course, there's the awesome Scream Factory Blu-ray. Friggin' love that artwork. And if you open it, of course, as Scream Factory usually does, it's got the original poster, the original VHS artwork, as the reverse cover. This release is everything I could have possibly ever wanted in a home media format for this movie. Alright, so with that out of the way, I think we spent enough time on that. Let's go ahead and look at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, the movie itself. A highly entertaining sequel to a horror classic. 12 years after Sally Hardesty escaped the clutches of Leatherface, Bill Johnson, and his sadistic clan, her uncle Lefty, played by Dennis Hopper, gets help from a local radio DJ named Stretch, played by Carolyn Williams, to put an end to these brutal crimes once and for all. He arms himself with 3 chainsaws and infiltrates their underground hideout after Stretch is kidnapped. It seems like Leatherface has a huge crush on her and apparently wants to keep her alive despite the protests of his older brothers. Lefty finally does arrive at the lair of the murderous psychopaths, ready to exact his bloody revenge for murdering his nephew and putting his niece through hell. But the evil cannibals aren't going to go down without a fight. Let's rev up the chainsaws and go at it. This follow-up to one of the greatest horror films of all time takes a completely different approach than the original. And I, for one, completely respect that. I didn't at first. I did not used to. I actually did not appreciate this film at all on my first watch. And it took me a while, but it did slowly grow on me over the years. And now I kind of love it. Yeah, honestly, it's hard to capture that kind of magic twice in a row, and I'm kind of glad they didn't just rehash the original. Tobe Hooper probably knew that lightning doesn't strike twice, and decided to do something different with the sequel. And again, I didn't used to like that, but now I do. I'm perfectly fine with it. The first film was far more subtle, with practically little to no humor whatsoever, whereas this one is completely over the top and wacky. Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 is gorier, more action-packed, and way more humorous. This movie is filled with several scenes of slapstick comedy, which, in my opinion, serve the film very well for what it is. I do kind of wish they at least kept the same tone as the original for most of the film and had more suspenseful and creepy scenes, but oh well, this film is a blast. Lefty, played by the always excellent Dennis Hopper, is one of the coolest horror film protagonists ever, and his determination to bring down the demented Sawyer family kept me thoroughly entertained and intrigued while watching this awesome flick. He's a total badass and has great chemistry with Carolyn Williams, and he might be just as nuts as the Sawyer family as well. I also thought that Bill Johnson was a pretty good Leatherface, though he comes nowhere near Gunnar Hansen, and they did try to make him a little too, like, human and sort of sympathetic. He wasn't the total monster that he was in the first movie. Here he's a little bit sissy in some scenes, but that's okay. I think it definitely works. I also loved seeing Jim Saito reprise his role as Drayton from the first movie. He's the only returning cast member. And then we also have Chop Top, played by genre favorite Bill Moseley, the twin of the hitchhiker character from the original, and who's even crazier. Chop Top is a really fun character and stole every scene he was in. And the grandpa is back as well, still alive somehow, and oddly moving around a little better than he did over a decade ago. I really love the setting of the underground tunnel full of skeletons as well. And the scenes in the radio station. Oh, by the way, this Blu-ray Special Edition has all the same special features as this version, plus more, of course, which is pretty freaking cool. But anyway, back to the movie. This film isn't without its flaws. Most people have a problem with this feeling more like a spoof than a sequel, and as I said earlier, that doesn't bother me anymore. It did for a while, but I'm over it now. At least this one actually has continuity with the first film, unlike the other sequels. Sure, it's not really scary, but it is pretty brutal and gruesome at times. There are plenty of horrific scenes, and whereas the original made you use your imagination and kind of suggested the horror, in this one, it's right in your face. There's nothing left of the imagination. I will say that the ending does seem very rushed and is way too abrupt. But the groovy chainsaw duel between Lefty and Leatherface during the climax of the film more than makes up for it. This movie has some great gore, a zany and dark sense of humor, exquisite makeup effects by Tom Savini, fun characters, an astounding chainsaw battle, a rockin' soundtrack, and a weird final frame. This is an extremely fun movie and an overall worthy successor to the original masterpiece, despite being polar opposite from it. I love both films, but in totally different ways. And for the record, I don't consider this sequel to be as spectacular as the first film. It's just a really fun and entertaining follow-up, not a flawless masterpiece like its predecessor. With that said, I still recommend this one, but if you decide to check it out, just know that it goes in a totally different direction than the first, of which there's really no comparison. So now I have redone my reviews for the first Chainsaw films, and if you want to know my full thoughts on the rest of the series, those other videos are still up on this channel. I didn't set them to private like I did with my original reviews of the first two, which were among some of the earlier videos. My reviews of the other entries in the series weren't set to private because I actually did those a few years later, and they didn't suck quite as much as my reviews of the first two, which were filmed back when I wasn't quite as used to being in front of a camera and all that. I paused a lot, talked very slowly, went on tangents, and just generally wasn't as comfortable with it as I am now. Alright, well, I think we spent enough time on that. Yeah, so basically what I'm trying to say is I've reviewed all the Chainsaw movies now, including these recent updates of the first two. Alright guys, thank you for watching Hellhound's Late Night Spook Show here on the Horror Metal channel. I'm Hellhound, and see you next time. Later.